Hey guys, my name is Iasmina and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I thought we should look at my Goodreads and have a look at the highest rated books that I've read. I have already done the opposite of this video, which was the lowest rated books that I've read, which I will link up here and down in the description if you're interested in checking that one out as well. But I thought today, let's just sit down and look at the highest rated books on Goodreads that I've personally read and talk about them. Do I agree with this high rating or not? What did I give these books? And yeah, let's just have a look because I think this can be interesting. This is definitely a more chill type of video, but I think it can be really fun. So let's dive in. Okay, I think already we can definitely see a theme because the first, third, and fifth book are the first 3 books in the Stormlight Archive series by Brandon Sanderson, of course. So the first book, the highest rated book that I've read, is apparently Words of Radiance. This has a 4.74 average rating, and I obviously gave this 5 stars. This is one of my favorite series of all time, and I think in the series, it might be my favorite book that I've read so far. I've only read the first 3. But yeah, that is interesting that Words of Radiance is the highest rated book that I've read. For some reason, I would have expected the Game of Thrones books to be higher. 4.74, that's actually insane. That is very, very high. And I think we can even look at the number of ratings, and we can see that it has 225,000 ratings. So that's obviously also something important to look at, because if something has a high rating but at the same time has a high number of ratings, that only makes it the better. The more people that rate something, usually the average tends to go low. So for 220,000 people to rate this enough that it has a 4.7, that's a majority of 5 and 4 stars. So that is very, very good. So the second highest book that I've read is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. How is the 7th book in the series the highest rated? Deathly Hallows is not my favorite. Honestly, I would have expected it to not be a lot of people's favorite. It's a really good book, don't get me wrong, but for it to be the highest rated in the entire series, that's a bit okay. Personally, I would have expected the 3rd or 4th book. The 4th book, The Goblet of Fire, is my favorite of the series. But I would have expected either Prisoner of Azkaban. Actually, no, maybe The Half-Blood Prince even. I think The Half-Blood Prince, the 6th book, is also a lot of people's favorite. Definitely not Order of the Phoenix. I don't expect that to be anywhere here. So then the 3rd most highly rated book that I've read is the first book in the Stormlight Archive series, The Way of Kings, 4.61. Amazing score, and I assume this has been read by even more people or rated by even more people. Yep, so this has almost 100,000 more ratings and still manages to be the 3rd highest rated book that I've read. Of course, we have Oathbringer, the 3rd book in the Stormlight Archive series at 4.58. Oathbringer was my least favorite of the Stormlight Archive books that I've read so far. I still gave it 5 stars because it was still amazing. Just compared to the first 2, I liked it less. So I'm actually happy that it's below the first 2 books. I think I agree with this ranking of the Stormlight books. I think Words of Radiance was also my favorite, and then The Way of Kings, and then Oathbringer. I haven't read Rhythm of War yet. Moving on, then we have Crooked Kingdom, the 2nd book in the Six of Crows duology by Leigh Bardugo, standing at 4.58 average rating. That is really high. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I like this duology a lot. This also has a ton of ratings, 235,000, a very, very popular series. I am surprised though that this is the highest rated YA book on this list so far. I mean, not counting Harry Potter, which would have been there obviously, but interesting. I'm not sure I agree with that, but okay. Then, like I said, we have Prisoner of Azkaban and right underneath it, Half-Blood Prince, which I also said that I would have expected those to be higher, and then of course Goblet of Fire. So, my predictions were almost correct. I did say that the 3rd, 4th, and 6th Harry Potter book, I would predict they would be most people's favorites. I was just surprised that Deathly Hallows was number 2, honestly. Then we have The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss, the 2nd book in the Kinkler Chronicles, standing at 4.54 average rating. I obviously gave this 5 stars. Kinkler Chronicle is my favorite fantasy series of all time, but the 2nd book is highest. That is interesting. Maybe it's because the first book has more ratings than the second book. I see it down the line, so we'll get to that. And then we have the third Lord of the Rings book, The Return of the King. If you count Lord of the Rings as being a trilogy, that's how it was published. I know some people disagree with that. Again, the third book is most people's favorite in the series. I mean, okay, I guess I can kind of see why that would be. But yeah, interesting. 4.53. I gave this 4 stars, apparently, in 2012 when I reread it at some point. It's not my favorite of the series. My favorite is the first one, but that's just because I really like beginnings of quest type stories. I think it's a lot of fun. But anyway, the next one is The Name of the Wind, my favorite book of all time. So let's just check the number of ratings here. Wow. I honestly did not expect this to have that many. 753,000 ratings. That is high. And what did the second one? How many ratings did the second one have? Yeah, significantly less. I think my theory was correct in that it's only higher because less people have rated it, therefore the average would be higher than the first book in the series. And I mean, the difference is 2.5 points, like 4.54 versus 4.52. So fantastic series, my favorite fantasy series of all time. I love it. Read it if you haven't already. Then we have Saga Volume 2 by Brian K. Vaughan at 4.52. That is also very interesting. I wouldn't have expected a graphic novel to be this high. But I know it is quite a popular sort of science fiction / fantasy graphic novel series. I've only read the first 3 volumes, I think. I should continue with the series because I did really enjoy them. I gave this one 4 stars. It's just, I don't think it's the most amazing graphic novel I've ever read, so I'm a bit surprised that it's this high, but I think it also has quite a huge following. So how many ratings does this have? Only 93,000. That's actually a lot lower than I expected, so maybe that's why the rating is so high. Alright, then we have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So, another YA book, and this one is a YA contemporary book, an incredibly famous and incredibly important, in my opinion, YA contemporary book. This follows the Black Lives Matter movement. It's fantastic. Read it if you haven't. This has been everywhere since it came out. I think this definitely deserves the spot here. Aha! Now we're going into A Song of Ice and Fire, which, like I said, I would have expected these to be higher. Apparently, A Storm of Swords, the third book in the series, I have that edition where they split the third book into 2 parts, so part 1 and part 2. Apparently this is part 2. Of course, by George R. R. Martin, has a 4.51 average rating. But the third book, and only 85,000 ratings on this very specific edition that is the second part of the third book in the series. So maybe that has something to do with it. It's been so long since I read this series. I think the third one was still good. I think after that it kind of went a little downhill, not gonna lie. But I think the first 3 are solid. One of the best fantasy books I've ever read. Okay, then we have Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix at 4.50. So I do think this is a lot of people's least favorite book. This and I think the first 2. Just because the first 2 are very simplistic and childish. Then we get into the good dark stuff. In the good dark stuff, I think the 5th one is just so much angst. So much angst. Then we have another Sanderson. That is The Hero of Ages, the third book in the original Mistborn trilogy at 4.48. I agree with this. I don't really have much to add here. I think Mistborn is fantastic, and I think more of Sanderson's series should be up here, but I agree that Stormlight Archive, Mistborn, everything else. Then we have the first Harry Potter book, which I do think holds a lot of nostalgia for most people, so I'm not surprised that it's here. I would have expected it to be higher, to be honest, but I think it also has an insane number of ratings, so that might actually take it down a little bit. Yup, 7,400,000 ratings. I'm not even gonna comment on that. That is insane. Aha! Another YA fantasy. Honestly, this is the one I was expecting to be in place of Six of Crows, because this series is insanely popular. Throne of Glass, this is the third book, Heir of Fire. This is where I stopped with this series. I still have the 4th book and I'm planning on giving it another try, but I kind of stopped here. Apparently I gave this 4 stars. I remember not liking it so much, but it's been years since I've read this, so I'm not sure I agree with this, but I do know it's a very, very popular YA fantasy series, so I would have expected at least the 1st or 2nd book to be a lot higher. Alright, then we have the second Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Then we have Game of Thrones. Alright, so the first book in the Song of Ice and Fire with 4.44 and how many ratings? 2 million. Yeah, that's what I expected. I would have expected this one to be higher, especially considering 2 million ratings. I mean, this series blew up after the TV show came out. Everyone and their mother who doesn't read, has never read fantasy in their life, has read, or has at least watched Game of Thrones, the show. So, I mean, this is huge. I think this should have been higher. Okay, then The Final Empire, the first book in the Mistborn trilogy. Again, no comment there. Yeah, and then A Storm of Swords, the first part of the split edition. So apparently the first book and the third book are the most popular books in the series. Again, it's been so long that I can't remember what happens in the third book specifically. But I'm not going to go on for too long, obviously, but let's just do a few more. So then we have Orange, the Complete Collection Volume 1. This is a manga, and it's the first manga on this list. That comes in at 4.43. I give this 5 stars. It's probably my favorite manga that I've read, and it's a really fantastic slice of life, but with a definite sort of magical realism twist. Then The Chamber of Secrets, alright, and then Six of Crows. What else do we have here? Wonder by R.J. Palacio at 4.42, which is a middle grade book about disability and being different. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful book. And then these next two, I think I'm going to stop here, but these next two are interesting. So then we have This Is Going to Hurt, Secret Diaries of a Junior Doctor by Adam Kay at 4.40. I love this book. This is a non-fiction book about Adam Kay's experiences being a junior doctor, and it's so hilarious. I listened to this on audiobook and it was so funny. I would highly, highly recommend this book. And then we have The Martian by Andy Weir at 4.40, and I'm sure this also has a ton of ratings. Yeah, 856,000. This is also massively popular, also because of the movie that came out, which was also really good. I love this book. I have mentioned this in my favorite sci-fi videos. If I've posted that yet, I will link it up here and down in the description. Fantastic book again, super, super funny, but hard sci-fi for sure, and just fantastic. Definitely watch the movie as well if you haven't seen it. It's really, really good. But I think I will stop there, even though I can continue. I can talk about all of these books because obviously I like a lot of these books a lot. Like I can already see Blood Song by Anthony Ryan at 4.39. Fantastic fantasy book. I think it's so underrated and definitely more people should read that one. I think it would be really interesting. Do let me know if you have a Goodreads account and you kept track of the books that you've read. Let me know like some of your top highest rated books that you have on your list that you've read. I think that would be really interesting. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed sitting down with me for a little chat. Honestly, this was a bit more of a chill video, but I just felt like looking through and having you guys along. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Otherwise, I hope you have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time with a new video. Bye.